Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters Fans Forum. The new name change, Pete. We were the 5 minute rant. I mean, we could still be the 5 minute rant based on yesterday. What do you think?
Definitely. There's a few things I could definitely rant about, but I like the name change. We're in a new era. We're going in a new
We
direction.
are. We
It,
are.
it, it seems quite fitting to have a new name attached to the show. So hopefully, it'll be a positive one for the weeks to come.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, how are you? First and foremost, how are you, mate? You all good? You're okay?
Yeah. Feeling a lot better this week.
Good
Struggled last
man.
week
Good
big
man.
time, but feeling a lot better. One more importantly, how are you? Because you were present at St James's Park yesterday to experience the new era. How are
I
you,
was.
more importantly, and how was the game yesterday through your eyes?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I feel pretty rough. I'm not gonna lie. I sank a few too many beers. I had some on the way, some there, some on the way home. So yeah, I staggered home last night. I think I got in at about 11:30, 11:45. So it was a long, long day. I had the phone call from good friend John Justice Allen saying, "Get yourself up here. I've got a ticket." So I was absolutely delighted, and again, big shout out to John for that. Really made my day. But yeah, it meant I had 45 minutes to get ready. So I was just running around like a lunatic, straight to Liverpool Lime Street on the train up, and yeah, it was great. But in terms of the game, so a lot of frustration, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
The first 5 minutes, mate. I mean, I know you did a match reaction last night on Loaded, didn't you? But the first 5 minutes, and even before the game, like the atmosphere was just incredible. It was something else. It was great seeing the fans so jubilant and everyone was in a really good place. And
yeah.
I think we were all really really excited. Got caught up in the moment.
Mhm,
Um, and then sadly, after 5 minutes, it all kind of went a little bit downhill.
mhm.
On a plus though, the first half ended abruptly due to a fan feeling unwell in the East Stand. And thankfully, that fan we've heard is on the mend. So big shout out to them and the family if they're watching. We're absolutely delighted, that they're okay. And that is the main thing. Football it kind of comes to an insignificance, doesn't it, when something like that happens? So you could feel around the grounds how, nervous people were and how, they were all wishing the fan well. So yeah, that the big positive from that the fan is okay. But in terms of the football, um, I've got to admit, mate, I'm really, really disappointed. I'm not that shocked because I know we've got new owners, but sadly we don't have a new manager, and we don't have new coaching methods or formation ideas or tactics, and that was evident for me yesterday. It really was. It just felt like the Newcastle of old, sadly, and I think that's why everyone was a little bit despondent. However, on a more positive note, we know that this wasn't going to be an overnight fix. We know that this isn't going to be, the long term future. But it would have been nice, wouldn't it, to get a win on the owner's first game and with the fans being so up for it and stuff. But what were your thoughts, Pete, in general on the game?
Um, uh, I don't want to sound too sort of negative because I'm of the same mindset of you that this is going to be a slow build in
Yeah,
terms of getting where we want to be. We've had a week of build up of players from Raheem Sterling to Coutinho to all these players being bandied about to all the managers at the top end of the game, the Contes and whoever being linked with us and there was a bit of a reality check yesterday is that we're not quite there yet. Um, and, the players that we've got, we still need to get behind them. We still need to work with them to get the best out of them. But it was a great start. The atmosphere was amazing. It was emotional when our chairman was introduced and the reaction of the fans and also
yeah,
the other consortium members, the likes of Amanda Staveley, Mirdad, Jamie, the way they reacted to when he was announced, it really felt like emotional all round. It was a big moment, and that was for me what I said last week is where I felt it was really real when they got announced that they were, the new owners of this club, and it was
yeah,
amazing to feel that, and everything around it was built massive, and we started fantastically well. It was really weird. The first 8 to 10 minutes was so different to the rest of the game, to the rest of the 80
It was.
minutes of the game,
It
because
was.
we started well. We pressed high. We put them under pressure. We got stuck into them. We really let them know that we were there, and they were on the ropes. They were rocky, and it was a fantastic goal that we scored. A fantastic goal, an underrated goal. David Ginola talked about it. He made a really good point after the game, is that the overlapping run from the fullback, whipped it into the box. Striker gets into the box, nicks in front of the defender. Fantastic goal. A goal that you would be, it would remind you of the likes of Andy Cole or even Les Ferdinand, as David Ginola said in the studio. It reminds you of that type of error, the Gillespie, Ferdinand link up, and it was the only time in the game that it happened. And it happened within a minute and a half of the game, and then all of a sudden, nothing. You don't see it again. There's no point in the game does Callum Wilson get any sort of service for the rest
he
of
didn't.
80 minutes.
He didn't.
And it was like that, and the pressing further forward. You see, sure, Longstaff commits a foul early on where he takes out Romero because he's pressing him high. Doesn't give him any time on the ball. Joe Linton the same. Set Maxey the same. Wilson the same. Willock's up there. After 10 minutes, it just stops. Nobody knows why. And it's almost as if the fans in the stadium realised it, because then the fans went flat because the pressure wasn't there.
They did.
And all of a sudden, Tottenham just eased themselves into the game. They just held the ball deep, played the ball around, settled themselves into the game. That settled us down because all the emotion and the adrenaline from the fans and the players stopped. And then they just proceeded into the game. And at that point, they looked like they were going to be comfortable. They always looked like they were going to create chances. They always looked dangerous. They always looked like they were going to score. And then we just dropped into position. We just dropped deeper and deeper and deeper and allowed them to really press onto the game. And it was such a shame that happened, because I thought, at 1-0, and even a couple of minutes after 1-0, I thought, these are on the ropes here. If we got a second goal, that could clinch the game potentially in the first 5 minutes, because their heads would be right down from that. But it never happened. I could go on all day, talk about individual performances. You got the comment here from and this is what I just wanted to talk about really quickly from Mike again. He's put, even the lads and lasses, just watch he's watching Monday Night Football at the moment. I've got it on the side to me. Apparently someone in the ownership is leaking stories to the local press. What are your thoughts? I don't know what you think about this, Chris, but it's very, very clear. And I listened to what Carragher and Neville said, and I happen to agree with probably 95% of what they've said. First and foremost, and this was the other comment I talked about, Geordie Toon for Life. Have you heard the Gary Neville tonight about Bruce? It's bloody disgraceful. You know what? I'm sorry, but I kind of agree with him. I do. And I'll tell you what it was. So if anyone that's not seen it,
I've not seen it myself, mate.
Yeah, if anyone's not here, it was a really good conversation talking about the consortium. The bit that I don't agree with is that they both believe that it's been a bad week for the consortium in their first week, the way in which they've handled things. I don't think it is.
I don't agree with that at all.
I
think they've done the best they can possibly do, Pete. I mean, what are they meant to do? If they'd have sacked Bruce and there's nobody lined up, people then would have said, "Can't believe they've left it. Can't believe they've." I mean, my thoughts on Bruce, and I was hoping that Graham Jones would come in and kind of oversee things. But then I don't know whether it was yourself or somebody else pointed out to me, which I wasn't aware. Well, I was aware, but I just hadn't really thought about it in great depth. As soon as Bruce goes, then Clements goes, Agnew goes, and then we're left with a skeleton backroom staff. Now, obviously, going forward, that's a problem, isn't it? So you can't just, I mean, unless they came to an agreement and they said, listen, Bruce, you're going now, and then the others will go in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know why maybe that couldn't have happened, but maybe they've all turned around and said, we're not doing that. We all go when he goes. Maybe that's what they've said.
Possibly, and to be fair, the point you've made, I said it last week. I said, it's a difficult situation for them, because if they get rid of them all, and apparently it's rumored to be 12 million to buy all of them out of their contracts and get them gone. But then you're left with just Graham Jones. You've already had the fitness coach that's left this week and gone to Everton, gone back to working with Rafa. So we've already lost a member of the first team staff already. Then with them going, that's a huge number of members of staff in the first team that have disappeared. So I understand it, and I haven't got an issue with them keeping Bruce in place for this game on Sunday. Okay, Gary Neville had an issue with the fact that the stuff been leaked out, and Carragher mentioned the same. And look, it's very clear. It's very, very clear that information had been leaked from somewhere. I'm not saying it's from the consortium, but it's very, very clear that information has been leaked from somewhere. The reason being is that everybody across the media world and the football world knew, or were distinctly aware, that when they took over the club, that Bruce was going to be sacked. All of them said it. Even the likes of Luke Edwards, who's close to Steve Bruce, said exactly the same. They all had the same party line. For everyone across that line to have the same party line says that something's been leaked from somewhere. So someone has given them the idea that Bruce is not going to be in the job for much longer. So, I do agree with that point. I just don't know whether it's from the consortium or someone around the club. Who knows? We probably will never know.
Yeah.
The issue that I have, and the bit that I agree with wholeheartedly, is that Steve Bruce should not be in a job right now. What should have happened, and this is the thing, this is where it's dragging on, and this is where the frustration is going to start creeping in for the fans, because we're now building to another massive game on Saturday at Crystal Palace. We're now at Monday night. Okay, the likelihood is they're playing on Sunday, so the likelihood is they haven't trained today. Okay, this was the perfect opportunity, either Sunday night straight after the game or today in the morning. I hope it's already been done and it's just not been announced yet. But what should have happened is Steve Bruce should have left the club. Left the club either with the backroom staff or left the club just solely on his own and been paid off. It should have happened. Okay, because we're now going and building into a game against Crystal Palace, who, funny enough, played tonight on Saturday, and we are still with Steve Bruce as manager. We're still going to be playing with the same mindset and the same players and the same setup, which is not good enough. And it was clear on Sunday that it wasn't good enough. And that for me is a big, big concern, because every game that creeps away and we've still got Bruce in charge is a game that we don't look like winning. And it's a game where the players are still down, because it's very clear that the players want him gone. And it's been mooted by a number of journalists that the players are just waiting for him to leave. It is not good. It's not good to continue this on. Now, they might not have a manager in place, and that's okay, that's fine. But what they should be doing is fully focusing on getting that manager sorted, but having Bruce out of the club. It is bad for the club. It's becoming a toxic thing for the club right now that Bruce is still there. We should be now part, in my opinion, part of a cleansing period at this club. And it was mentioned, the word cleansing, on another podcast in the last couple of days. It's a cleansing period for us now. And you cannot cleanse this club without getting rid of Steve Bruce. You cannot. No. And you have still got the lingerings of an old regime in the club with Steve Bruce still there. I haven't got an issue with him having the build up to this Tottenham game. The turnaround was too quick. They didn't realise they were taking the club on at the point they did. They had a lot of work to do. Fair enough. But they should have had the mindset that, right, see your 1,000th game out, see this game out. We've been working on a new manager, so therefore after this game, you leave. And the fact that you lost and the way in which you lost, and 3-2 doesn't look like a bad result, but it was a bad result, that should be spelling the end of your managerial career, right, at Newcastle United. Because any other manager at any other club, not winning 8 games with the reputation that Newcastle has, should have been out the door. It's as simple as that. So I do agree with what Gary Neville said and Jamie Carragher said from that point of view. I think what happens now is crucial. I said it on the review show on Sunday. What happens between the next 24 and 48 hours is crucial. It's crucial to our build-up to a game against Crystal Palace, who are playing well, but are a team that we can beat. We went there last season and won. Okay, we need the points. It's as simple as that. We have got no time to waste now. We need the points. By getting rid of Bruce, brings the players up 15-20% because they know he's gone, especially the majority of the squad that don't want him there. What it then does is give them a new, fresh outlook. If they can get a manager in place for Saturday, great, even better. And the new backroom staff, because you're going to get new ideas and new ways of thinking. So it was a really good conversation on Sky, and I do agree with a lot of what they say. I know people don't like what they say because it's negative towards us and the ownership of the club, and a lot of it, and some of it I didn't agree with. I thought it's been a great week in terms of their communication, in terms of their media presence, in terms of everything that was built around the game on Sunday was very, very good. War flags, the lot. But what's happening now is not good, and it needs to be resolved, and it needs to be resolved ASAP for the benefit of the fans, for the benefit of the club, and for the benefit, more importantly at the moment, the players that play on that pitch.
Totally agree, Pete. Totally agree. And this has been a long time coming, hasn't it? And you get, it's funny, isn't it, how split some of the media are, because some ex-players or ex-pros or whatever are coming out and saying, oh, Steve Bruce, what a great job he's done. He's leaving with a legacy and all stuff like that, coming out with this regurgitated rubbish that surely they must know nobody believes in. And then you get other ones who, I mean, even on TalkSport, they're starting to do it now, aren't they? What's his name? The ex-Tottenham lad. I can't think of his name, the midfielder. No, ex-Tottenham midfielder who's on TalkSport. Jamie O'Hara.
Oh, O'Hara, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, so he's come out and said he's got to go. Like now, he's got to go.
They're all saying it. They all know.
But
and you know what? Bruce wants his money. It's very clear.
Yeah, of course he does. Of course he does.
Did you see his interview after the game?
No, I haven't. Do you know what? I haven't even watched Bruce's interview because I didn't want to. I didn't want to be on a downer. I just thought I've seen the game. I'm happy.
You know what? He came out and said at the end of that game in his press conference with Sky that it's now time for clarity. Now he's based in the words that he said. He's asking for clarity himself, right? Yeah. And the reason why he's asking that is because he wants to know whether he's getting sacked or not. And you know what? There's a part of me that understands that. He needs that understanding.
Yeah, he does.
The uncertainty isn't good for any individual to go into a game not knowing whether they're going to be sacked or whether they're going to be in the job or whatever, right? But there needs clarity. But really, the reality is he wants the clarity. He wants clarity because he wants to be sacked. He wants to take his money and go and leave and walk away. That's what he wants. But for the fact that he came out on national TV, on Sky, and said that, says everything you need to know. Just pay the money. Just move him on. Just start cleansing the club of all the previous shite that was in the regime before.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, you know what? We've got a guest. We've got a guest waiting, and he's a familiar guest who we're really looking forward to have on. So I'm going to bring him on now as the first guest of the evening, and it's a big hello to Kieran.
You all right, lads?
How you doing, mate?
How you doing? All right?
Not bad, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's a really good point where you make. Like the problem is like two problems really, isn't it? You've got getting rid of the coaches, and it's also getting the manager in. It doesn't look like many managers are keen on the job at the moment, does it? The position we're in, like the Leicester manager turned us down, and I know the Brighton manager didn't exactly like come out and say he's been approached, but he didn't really like deny it. I just think
I thought. Did you see Gerrard's interview, Kieran?
Yes, I did actually. Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting because talk about sitting on the fence. Someone's going to have to pull them splinters out his arse because he didn't want to. He didn't want to say, did he? I'm not interested in the job. Like whereas Brendan Rodgers came out and said, fully committed to Leicester, doesn't want to go anywhere, and you got to respect that. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. But Steven Gerrard didn't have to sit on that fence, didn't he?
And then the Mirror today have said that he's on. That apparently Newcastle have shortened their shortlist to 3, and Gerrard's on it. Gerrard, Unai Emery, and I'm not sure if it's Paulo.
That's one. I don't want him. It's a big risk.
Too much
I don't
about
really know
him.
much about. No, I don't. It's
so
like Unai Emery.
Yeah. From what Chris said about him being on the fence, and he was on the fence, but then to have that and then be in the position where he's now in a potential shortlist of 3, what does that say? Is he just waiting for the
Yeah.
official communication? You don't know. We're all speculating here, but
Do you know what? I think it's more likely that they're gonna. I don't. I mean, there's another one I don't really know about, but this like, is it Lucien Favre or Favre or whatever his
Yeah.
name is?
Yeah.
They're talking about. There's been rumours like a short-term appointment for him because of his age and all that. I mean, it's just a risk, isn't it? Like, who do you get? I've got no doubt they'll sack him. It's just when they find a replacement. It's obviously what they're waiting for, isn't it? That possibly a director of football as well, so that they can advise the new owners.
do you think?
I feel.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
sorry, Pete. I was just going to
Okay.
say, from my point of view, I think I would rather like some safe hands come in. So I'd rather someone come in who's got a little bit of Premier League experience. Now, the three names who have been mentioned, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is Unai Emery, Steven Gerrard, and Roberto Martinez. Now, I'm quite
Not for
I'm
me,
quite
not Martinez.
quite adamant. I don't want Martinez. I really don't.
No.
I obviously a lot of my mates are Blues, and they're just not into him at all. They were literally having a party when he left. And when you think he's been in the Belgium job now, which he was very fortunate to get, and he's still not quite doing it, is he? And you think, look at the players at his disposal. So I think he might struggle. Obviously we've got Unai Emery, who he is a winner. He's won titles, he's won cups. He had a great career, didn't he, with Sevilla as manager? I think he won three UEFA Cups on the bounce, or was it?
Unai Emery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got the pedigree, Pete, but I don't know, that Arsenal stint worried me. I've got to be honest, it worried me because he looked weak to me. He looked like he'd lost the dressing room, and you didn't really. I don't know. There was something about it. I'm just not sure.
It's a big risk. It's a big risk bringing somebody in who is something more associated with winning trophies and not like hasn't been involved in relegation battles. To me, I would like personally, I would like the Brighton manager. That's who I want.
Graham
So he's
Potter.
been involved. Yeah, that's his
Graham
name,
Potter.
Graham Potter. Yeah, because I think I like the way they play football, and also he has been involved in relegation battles and he's kept them up. But I don't think he will leave. I don't think he would leave there because they've got something going there, haven't they? But a lot of people think money talks, and he might take it. I don't think so. But don't know what your opinions are on it.
No.
It's a difficult one. Like Unai Emery's got the pedigree because he's won trophies. He won the Europa League against Man United with Villarreal again at the back end of last season. So he's a guy he's well known as a cup winner. He wins cups. He's very much a cup type manager. He sets teams up to play that way. And actually, we've got 29 cups left to play as Newcastle. So would it be the wrong move? The only question I have is exactly the point that Chris made. At Arsenal, he looked like he wasn't really capable of managing that team and managing those expectations. But and there are question marks that all of the good work that he's done in his managerial career is in Spain. Is that a reason for him? Is that a reason for him to stay in Spain? Is he just set up for that league? Does he prefer that style of football? We don't really know. Lucien Favre is a good manager. He's a good manager. He proved it at Borussia Dortmund. And he is capable, but again, it then goes back to the point of he hasn't got that Premier League pedigree, he hasn't got that managerial experience and pedigree. Do you necessarily need that? No, but when you're in a relegation battle, you need some kind of experience of being in this league and being in and around it. So it's going to be an interesting one. Whether they're the three names, I agree with Roberto Martinez. I don't particularly rate him as a manager. Are they the three names? Who knows? Who knows? But
also,
go on, Kieran. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like, you can blame the manager all you want, but these players are just not good enough. I feel like the defensive midfield is just absolutely fucking hell. Yesterday, watching them yesterday was just like watching kids, wasn't it? How easy they cut through our defence.
Well, I highlighted Kieran Clark yesterday I
Oh,
thought he
Bad.
was,
awful.
Bad.
he was the worst player on the pitch by a country mile, and I
Yeah.
said it in the reaction show on Loaded. For the movement that he made for that third goal, he sold out his defence. He left them hanging out to dry, and there was nothing they could do to recoup that or stop that from being a goal once he made that movement. It's a movement that an under-12 defender would make, not a Premier League level defender. It was bad. It was so bad, and I had question marks when he was put in the team because I thought Fernandes should have started personally, but I'll be quite comfortable in not seeing Clark play for the rest of this year in our starting lineups because he just needs to leave, and it's very, very clear that defensively we need to be stronger. We need a defensive midfielder that can put a tackle in, that can hold the defence as a defensive midfielder. There were a few issues there, a few issues. But I just wanted to ask you really quickly about the managerial situation, Kieran, and to Chris as well. Do you believe that we will pull the trigger and get Bruce out between now and Saturday when we play Palace?
Fucking hell. Honestly, I couldn't answer. It's just like it depends on it. If they've got someone lined up, then yeah. But do they though? That's the thing. And apparently, like they're concerned about Graham Jones or something. I was reading like him stepping in. I'm not so sure if he'd be keen on doing it. So I
He's
don't
not
know.
a manager, is he? He's not a manager.
No.
No, he's not.
he's
He's not
not,
the
you're right.
long-term solution. I mean, for me,
No.
Jones would always be a stopgap. Maybe until they brought in a director of football, or maybe brought the manager in. But I think I say the one good thing. I did say there was one other good thing, didn't I? But another good thing about the game yesterday was the owners have seen firsthand how badly we need a new manager. We need new direction. We need a new voice. Because these players are not playing for Steve Bruce, and that was evidence at yesterday. The spine for me was a big problem, Pete. I know you mentioned Kieran Clark. I think Lascelles needs somebody strong and somebody next to him who kind of knows what they're doing. That's why I was so surprised that Federico Fernandez wasn't playing. It really surprised me that when I saw the lineup. I know Bruce likes Clark because he's a left-sided central defender who's got a left foot, but even so, you've got to be starting Federico Fernandez. I think he is our best centre back. But the game was lost for me in the middle. I think it was Højbjerg, Skip, and Ndombele, and they just ran all over Willock, Hayden, and who was the third one?
Just Sean Longstaff, wasn't it? And Shelby obviously
Sean
was sent
Longstaff.
off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then you're right. Shelby come on, and yeah, well, that is just typical John Joe Shelby, isn't it? You can't rely on him, and that's the issue. To make the tackle that he did on a yellow, with there was another player covering, so it wasn't like he didn't have to make that decision. But I do think it was telling that he did make that decision, because I think he probably thought, I don't want to play the next game, so he's made that decision easy for himself, hasn't he?
Yeah, he don't want it. He's not. When you're up for the fight, he's not a guy that you want in the trenches. It's
He's
as
not good
simple as
enough
that.
anyway. He's not good enough.
It's not even about being good enough. He's just not got the right mentality for it.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
For me, at 30 years old, let him go and play. Let him go and play at the top end of the championship, where he can just ping the balls around.
If someone like Bournemouth come up, they'll buy him or something like that, won't they? West Brom,
whoever, as long as they pay, between 5 and 8 million for him, which I think is reasonable.
It's reasonable, yeah. We get that.
Get him out of the club. But Chris McCarthy, I just want to get your thoughts before we move on. Chris McCarthy's put in another manager in the hat.
Oh God,
no,
Chris.
Until the end of the season. I don't know
Chris,
if I need to ask you whether you're keen on that or not, both of you.
No
thanks. No.
Let's move on.
Just no. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Chris. And would I take him over Bruce? Yes, but now we've got our takeover. Now I think that ship sailed, hasn't it? If you'd asked me that about a month ago, I'd have said, yeah, go on, why not? Just to get rid of Bruce, why not?
Yeah.
But no, not now. Not now. But listen, Kieran, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. We've got a couple of people waiting to come on. But as always, mate, wonderful having you on. I'm going to give you one of these.
No problem. See you later.
Cheers, Kieran. All the best, mate.
Take care, mate. Always good to have Kieran on.
That was pretty positive from Kieran, that wasn't it? As
It
far
was.
as Kieran's positivity goes, that wasn't bad.
Yeah, definitely. He's certainly going. We're moving him in the right direction, aren't we? Week by week,
Yeah.
we're just chipping away. And we'll get him there, no doubt. We'll get him there.
That first win, he's going to be buzzing, isn't he? It'd be great if we go and beat Palace at the weekends. We'll have to get Kieran on first thing. Say, Kieran, what do you reckon of that? See if he finds anything negative.
Definitely.
Pete, before we can move on to our next guest, have we got any other comments? Or
yeah, I was just about to come to that. I was just going to say, there's a good one here. Hold on one second. Mad Mag Mark. Unai Emery is the king of the Europa League. He's won it 4 times and is the perfect man to get us to that level in the short term. You know what? If he can handle the transition into the Premier League better than he did with Arsenal, and Arsenal were in a bad moment at that point in time. So, I do give him a little bit of sympathy there. We are in a bad moment, but I think the club and everything around the club, I think it is in a better state and with better owners that are a little bit more ambitious than Arsenal were. I think Arsenal did hang him out to dry a little bit. So I am starting to warm to that idea because initially I wasn't too keen on Unai Emery purely because of his Arsenal experience. But he, like I said to you a minute ago, he's won trophies. He's a proven winner in Europe. So it'll be an interesting one. We've got Geordie Tune for Life. My question is, has Rodgers been asked by the club, or is he being asked by the journalists? Because we are the news at the moment. Okay, until the club says something, then I don't believe it.
Yeah, it's a good point from Geordie Tune for Life. I think the point we were making before, mate, was that it was just when the media asked him about it, he was quite dismissive. Now, that's not to say he won't change his mind. That's not to say he'll have a contract shoved under his nose and he'll reject it. He might not. But it kind of felt like maybe the feelers were being put out for him, and it was the interview I saw was him basically saying very politely, "No, I'll stay where I am." Whereas, as I say, the Gerrard one just stunk of "come and get me."
Yeah,
that's how it felt.
Yeah, you're right. Brendan Rodgers is one of those clutch of managers that are going to wait to see how we grow as a club, and then we'd be interested. So if we're looking at this time next year with a good summer, we stay in the league. We've got a good summer of heavy spending, and they can see progression, and they can see that we've started the season well, for example. Then if we were to come in at that point, it would be a different conversation, although we probably wouldn't at that point. But maybe by the end of next season, I think someone like Conte or Brendan Rodgers would be more interested. But another one here from Keith Roll, our stat man on Loaded Away Days. Danny Murphy suggested Roy Hodgson for the manager's job today. Would you take Roy Hodgson as Newcastle manager until the end of the season? It's not the first time I've seen that name bandied about. What do you think?
Do you know what? As soon as I seen the name, I was a bit like, oh. But what he said there, until the end of the season, probably, yeah. Because don't forget, if we bring in an interim manager, if they're told, listen, it's until May when the season ends, and then you're out the door, the new guy comes in. If it means that we get a higher quality of manager for next season, then yeah. And Roy Hodgson, to be fair, he knows the league inside out. He's managed to keep clubs up. He will. Even if he gets a limited budget, he might not even get a limited budget because the owners probably know exactly who they want. So they would just be like, oh, here's your new sign and enjoy him kind of thing. They might not ask Roy, to make the decisions. So maybe Roy Hodgson wouldn't be that much of a bad shout. This is the only problem, Pete, when we were talking about the likes of Potter, how managers like that, if you say to them, oh, you can have it till the end of the season, I think they say no. I think they say no now at this point. Whereas if you bring in a bit of an old head, so a Hodgson, a Wenger, somebody like that, I'm not going to say Allardyce, but somebody like that, they would be more receptive to taking the job on a temporary basis. And maybe that's just what we need at the moment, because who knows, there could be a manager out there who they've approached, maybe a Conte, who said, listen, I don't want it now, but I'll have it next season. If you stay in the Premier League and you give me a full pre-season, a full summer to sort the squad out, yeah, I'll take it. But now, between now and January, they'd be risking their careers, wouldn't they? Because if
Yeah.
they can't get a tune out of these players, they're in trouble, big trouble.
Do you think that's the reason why we haven't brought a new manager in yet? Is because do you
Possibly.
think there could be that that toss up between, do we get one till the end of the season to secure survival, or do we just go with the guy that we want now for the next 2 or 3 years right now? Do you think there's a bit of a tug of war in terms of, not between the consortium, but in terms of what decision they go with and who?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly it. I think if you approach Antonio Conte now and say, "Oh, we'd like you, to have the job. By the way, this is the squad we've got. By the way, this is the league position. By the way, you can't buy anyone till January." He's going to look at that and think, if we don't pick up the wins between now and the 1st of January, we're going to be right down there. And he doesn't want to be managing us in the Championship. Of course he doesn't. And Antonio Conte is renowned, isn't he, for saying that he wants a full summer. However, if we were to approach him in the summer, say thanks very much to the guy who's looked after us this season and kept us up, then we'll then go, right, here's your war chest, here's your squad, get rid of all these if you want, bring in your new players, and then he's got a full season to attack with. That's a more attractive proposition, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree.
Right, should we go for our next guest?
Yeah, let's do it.
Lovely. Big welcome to Mike. How you doing, Mike?
I'm great. How are you, lads?
Good, mate. Very good. Thanks. Thank you
very
very much for coming on, and sorry for the delay.
No problem, mate. Brilliant point before about Hodgson. I've got a feeling, obviously, because what's happened with the takeover, it's gone through at a rush pace. The consortium obviously weren't given a clue that it was going to happen that quick. So obviously the plans that they had before, they were going to get somebody in place. They were going to get a director of football, rumours be. They were going to get a manager in place. Obviously, that's been put on the back burner. So the takeover's gone through. They've just been handed the keys to the door. Literally 24 hours later, there you go, there's a club. So they've got to do it from top to bottom. So they've had to go in there with a blank piece of paper and try and find out what needs priority work done, first of all. So again, we all know the training facilities, the youth academy, the grounds all need doing from top to bottom. Then obviously our future, obviously we don't want to be in the Championship. But what you were saying before about Hodgson, I think there is something bubbling on behind the scenes. Fair enough, Hodgson, he's 74 years old. He's not going to take it for the long term. But as you said, he'll keep the club up. He's English. He knows the league. He'll get that group of players we've got now from now until January, and he'll get them playing his way. And we'll steadily climb the table. I've got no doubt about it. That gives us then, in the summer, if we stop up, chance then to talk to a manager who's actually in a job at the minute. You could say the likes of Benitez. I know he said he's not going to do it, but you were talking about next summer now. You could bring in 4 or 5 managers who actually work, and so you've got Rodgers, Benitez, Potter, managers of that ilk who could be approached then in the summer, knowing that we're going to be safe, and then we've got the war chest to go and buy players in.
Yeah.
So that's my thinking behind that's why it's been drawn out so long. I think they are in talk to somebody coming in. I mean, there was a tweet today by Steve Heaton, obviously, who said they approached Zidane and offered him a load of cash to come in. So they're looking at top notch managers. They're not looking at but the likes of Martinez. They're looking at the top managers. So I think they have got a plan in place. It's just a case of us sticking by them, and I think we will get there. Obviously, Bruce he's got to go, but there's no point in sacking Bruce and just putting Steve Jones there, because it's just a like for like, literally. We need somebody in place, even if it's a director of football coming in who brings an interim manager in. He's given that the director of football thing is a good point, because what you do there is you get a director of football in, and his let's say 1 or 2 week work is you get a manager in. That's your job. You go and sort the best manager you can get in for this club, because consortium have got other things to worry about apart from getting a manager in.
Yeah,
you've got the running of the club and the behind the scenes to deal with. So getting a director of football in is priority. That's number one, and then you take it from there. You get a director of football, you get a manager in. the manager then he comes in till the end of the season. He's given a plan. This is what we need to do. So I think Hodgson is the more logic choice because he's out there. I think you jump at the chance as well. I mean, look at what he did at Inter Milan early in the early 90s. He took them from relegation fodder and got them up the table before the end of the season. So Hodgson is a good shout.
What do you think, Pete, on what Mike said there?
No, you've made some really, really good points. And, the only thing I would say about Hodgson is his age. I think that's probably a big reason why he finished with Palace, is because he was getting on a little bit. But looking at that type of manager for the rest of the season, for that period of time, as you've said, and then getting a big name in beforehand would be the logical move in the situation that we're in. But it goes back to the point that me and Chris were talking about. I asked Chris that question before he came on, in that, do you think they're having that little bit of a tug of war of whether to go for a Zidane type manager, the top level managers, the elite managers right now, or getting someone that's going to keep us safe? And it may well be that that's the case. I did see that that Steve H put on about Zidane being offered the job and sort of turning it down. So, it could well be that that's what they're looking at, but they're just not getting the responses they want at the moment, and they don't necessarily want to go for that manager that's lower down on the list. So that's what they're kind of waiting for and trying to be patient for. The only thing I would say is, in the question I'd asked to you, Mike, is that, you mentioned about there's no point obviously getting rid of Bruce, but do you not think that it's a little bit toxic with him still being there as being part of, or considered part of, the old regime, but he's still there and he's still kind of hanging around and he's still part of the club? But we all as a fan base want him gone, because we want to know that the whole of that old regime is gone and he's the only lingering part of that old regime that's sort of still there. Do you not think that, it would be good to just get rid of him to cleanse that, as I've mentioned before? Yeah,
definitely. I would drop him with a heartbeat. But again, like I said, who they've got to have somebody lined up to bring in. Would you sack him before the Palace game and put Graham Jones in charge?
At this moment in time, yes, I would, purely because I think, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think there's at least 75% of that playing squad that doesn't want to play for Steve Bruce, that doesn't want him to be manager of this club, and because of that, I believe that by taking him out of that scenario, by getting rid of him and moving him on, will automatically give the players another 10 or 15% lift by knowing that he's no longer manager. And I think that will build an excitement. I think that gives them then a platform to show their abilities on the pitch, and to keep them on their toes. And the reason why you need to keep them on their toes is because they don't know who's coming in, and they don't know that person that comes in whether they're gonna take to them. Case in point, Matt Ritchie, for example. Who's to say that the new manager doesn't come in and say, right, you're not a left back, I'm not playing you there. Jamal Lewis, you're starting, you're my left back. And what that does, that gives Jamal Lewis that 20% lift. And actually, who's to say that him coming in under a new manager doesn't give him an extra lift and gives him the ability to start showing what he's all about? Another case in point, Fabian Shaw. I've been one of his biggest critics, but he's not kicked a ball this season for us. But yet he goes to Switzerland and he gets given man of the matches and is getting goals and assists and all the rest of it. Who's to say that another manager comes in and points the finger and says, right, you're my centre back, I'm starting you, you play alongside Lascelles, you play on the left hand side, you do this, and this, and he goes off and does it, and he shows his ability at Switzerland in a Newcastle shirt, and automatically get another rise from the defence, and we start playing well. We need that. We need that new set of eyes on this team, because clearly Steve Bruce is annoyed certain players. Another example is Ryan Fraser. Clearly he's had fallouts with certain players, and certain players that we've questioned, why are they not starting? Why is Jamal Lewis not kicked a ball? He's only 24 years old. We paid 13 million for him last season. Why is Fabian Shaw not kicking the ball? Why is one of the best creators and assisters in the Premier League in the last 4 or 5 years in Ryan Fraser not playing in a team that can't create chances? Why is that not happening? And all it would take is a new manager just to come in and to say, hold on, you're my man. You're playing for me. And I want you to play every game. And I want you to do this, 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 and this. Right? Automatically, that gets a lift from him. Right, the manager wants me. I'm in. I'm invested. And all of a sudden, you see him creating chances. You see Wilson scoring more goals. You see ASM having the pressure taken off him because all the pressure is on ASM. If he doesn't perform, the team doesn't perform. All of a sudden, you've got 3 players then that can create something for you going forward. It just changes the outlook of the team. And although Graham Jones isn't the manager, maybe Graham Jones has some ideas about some of these things that he can't implement because he's not the manager, because Bruce makes the decisions. Say, for example, if he gets rid of Bruce today or tomorrow, and Graham Jones comes in and says, right, this is how I want you to play for Palace, and it brings in a better performance and we get a win, great. You know, that's what I'm thinking now. Everything that Bruce is doing is very much the same. We're not seeing anything different from him. And we won't, because he's not a very good manager. But I'm just thinking now we just need to see something different. Just give us a little bit different.
I have to say, did you see that there's a clip going around today, that a couple of second clip where he was talking to his coach and he said, how do we stop it? I haven't got a clue.
I did.
You could clearly read it on lip read it. It was there. That's just sums up Steve Bruce, doesn't it? He's tactically in out. Yeah. He hasn't got a clue. And great points what you put across. Going full circle back to yesterday, the celebrations. It was brilliant seeing all the new ownerships in the stands when the camera was on them. They were there, unite with the scarves, waving them in the air. Just the look of proudness on their faces when they were looking at the crowd and stuff. Yeah. And also having the entertainers there from the 90s. We had Rob Lee, we had Gillespie, Beresford, and apparently they'd never been asked by the previous regime to come to actually attend a home game. But first game in, bang, they were there. Great seeing Terry Mack there as well. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And that's just an easy win. That just gets the fans up. And that going forward, you can see this happening week in, week out at home games. It's just going to be the same atmosphere. Brilliant.
You wait. We've not even had Kevin Keegan back yet. We've not even had Alan Shearer joining that group of players. We've not had Les Ferdinand joining that group of players. We've not had Faustino Asprilla. He'll come back at some point. Nobby Solano. All of these boys, Lauren Robert, all of these ex-players that are legends of the club. You think as the weeks go on, these players are going to start wanting to come to see us and want to come back to the club because they've never been asked before. They've not felt welcome. All of these people are going to start coming back. So all of a sudden, you're going to get all the legends coming to watch the game and mixing not just with the fans, but with the players as well in the players' lounge. All these ex-players there, taking advice, giving them a little bit of advice, talking about old stories. It's how you build a club. Man City have done it so well. It is a community. Yep. Man City have done it so well. Now, look, before Man City got taken over, they didn't have the level of Premier League history like we had. They didn't have the type of Premier League legends that we had. But what they did, they got all the older previous legends in, and they're all ingrained into the club. They're all there on match days. They're all involved in the club. They have a great relationship with the current players that are at that club. They all have that respect. I was watching the other day, the 2012, when they won their first Premier League. And when they were going up to receive the Premier League, they had all the ex-players there. And it wasn't just like you're an ex-player, I'll shake your hand. It was an embrace because they knew each other and they'd ingrained themselves into the club. I want to see the same. I want to see the same from us because we've got so many talented ex-players that should be welcomed back into the club. 100%. I see it being more and more week in, week out. Andy Cole as well, Peter Beardsley, all of those guys will start coming back for sure.
Definitely.
There's a plethora to pick from, isn't there? There's absolutely loads.
It was brilliant having David Ginola. Obviously, I watched it back, and he was bigging up Newcastle because they were putting up, how do you get players to come to Newcastle? And his one line was, Whitley Bears got a great suntan shop. And that just made me laugh. He's come from PSG in the 90s. He's come from PSG, glamorous club. He comes to Newcastle within. I know he was only there 2 seasons, but within the first few months, he fell in love with Newcastle, the Geordies, and he's never forgot that. And if we get people like him behind the scenes, especially for the foreign contingent who are going to come into the club. They're going to look up to that and think, you know what? Well, why not?
Yeah.
And they're going to offer mega bucks. That's we can't control that. We just want players playing for the club, playing for the shirt. And when you've got legends involved in the background at some even at youth level, it's going to help. It's going to help.
100%, mate. 100%.
Absolutely, Mike. Well, listen, Mike. Thank you very much for coming on, mate. Really,
thank you for having me on.
Really enjoyed having you on, mate, and you've made
pleasure.
some fantastic points as well. So I'm going to give you one of these.
Love it. Love it.
That's class, that. But no, great, absolutely great having Mike on. Mike made some fantastic points there. Really, really good.
You know what? I really enjoyed that chat with Mike. He's he's a good, knowledgeable guy. He asked some really, really good questions, and made some really, really good points as well.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that point. I think that hearing from Kieran and then Mike, I think there's a bit of a tug of war at the moment about what manager they're going for. I really do. I think they want an elite manager, but they're worried because I think if we'd have gone and beat Tottenham, or certainly got a point off them, or made it a really sort of competitive game, I think they might have been able to entice a top manager into the club this week, because they could see that there's something to work with, and I think there maybe is a slight setback because of how poor some of the players played. Not all of them, but some of them played.
Some of them, yeah.
But it's an interesting. It's an interesting one. I did have a question on that.
Yeah, but I was going to say, Pete, before I go to the sponsors, there was a question here, and I think we were discussing this on the WhatsApp group, weren't we? Somebody mentioned. I'm going to try and look for the message, but I know what the message is. It's to do with Jesse Lingard. Apparently, one of his representatives was at the game. Yeah, mate, he's exactly the kind of player we should be going for, isn't he? In January, exactly the kind of player.
Too right. He is, he is the guy that can breathe new life into this team. He'll give energy. He's got work rate. He's got, more importantly, ability. And you know what? He breeds that little bit of entertainment in the dressing room. You see his Instagram,
he's good fun, isn't he?
Yeah, and you need that. You need that. Him and Declan Rice got on like a house on fire at West Ham because they're of the same mindset. You can imagine him and the likes of ASM, the likes of Callum Wilson, and the jokes and the banter and Willock in there as well. Some of those younger lads in the changing rooms, and he would just be a really good sort of like addition into the team. Look, we need defenders. It's plain and simple. We need defenders. First and foremost, actually, we need Dubravka back. Darlow wasn't the worst yesterday, but I tell you what, for that Harry Kane goal, he made it very, very easy for Kane to lob him. I thought as a goalkeeper, I thought he was very, very poor. He didn't make himself look big. He didn't get high. It was very, very clear he was only going to do one thing, and that was to lob the keeper because the way the ball was bouncing. He didn't get himself high. He didn't try and make it difficult for him. He just kind of stood there, flapped an arm in the air, and it was very, very quickly a goal. I just thought it was poor goalkeeping. And I think.
Do you know what, Pete? I just wanted to ask you about that Harry Kane goal.
Yeah.
I don't know about you and what it was like, watching it on the telly, but it's funny watching it live. As soon as he scored, and obviously I seen the linesman's flag, I thought it was onside.
Yeah.
When the goal went in, I thought, we're down 2-1 here. And then the linesman's flag went, and I was thinking, that wasn't offside, that was on. It was on. And then obviously they done the VAR check, didn't they? And I watched it back when I got home last night. And don't get me wrong, it was quite close, wasn't it? But even in real time, for me, I knew it was a goal because he looked on.
It goes back to the point, Chris, because I thought the same. I thought when he made the run, it was a bit of relief when it was marked offside, but inside I was still thinking, could this still be a goal? But you've got to look at the way that back line was set up. Now, you should never ever, as a defensive unit, you should never ever be deeper than your centre backs ever. No. As a defensive line, it should be on your because look, your centre backs, you always have a leader and then you have a second in command. It's always the same. The problem is we haven't got a leader in that centre back unit. None of those four centre backs that we have are leaders, and that's our biggest problem. We need a commander, and that's what we need to bring in, someone that can command the defense and organize them. And what you should have is the leader of that defense, and at the moment it should be Lascelles, is to say, everyone's on my line. Nobody drops deeper than me. So I know that if a player is dropped below me in the line, that they're offside, because all of you should be pushed up. The one rule that should always happen is your fullback should always be slightly higher than your centre-backs. Your centre-backs should be the two deepest. Now, if you look at that line, why Kieran Clark, and it was touched on tonight, I think... I can't remember who mentioned it, but someone mentioned it. Why Kieran Clark hasn't looked around him to see where Harry Kane is, I have no idea. Because clearly Harry Kane was playing on that side of the pitch, so Kieran Clark was marking him. At not one point was he looking at Kieran Clark. And in fact, he was looking ahead to Lucas Moura, who was 10 yards in front of him, who was being marked by another midfielder. So why he was looking at him, I have no idea. So again, just poor defensive positioning and organisation from him. But the line was so disjointed that nobody would have known, because you know what? They hadn't talked about it. There was no communication from that back line. And that's the biggest problem. And that's where I say, you know, you look at those four players at the back all played under Rafa Benitez. We were never that disorganised. And it comes down to coaching. We need a manager in there that can coach these players and drill them into defending. Not just defending in terms of tackling, but defending in terms of their positioning and how they move side to side, up and down as a unit. If they can get that nailed on, those type of goals don't happen. You know what? If those type of goals don't happen, we're in with a chance of winning a game, because we will create chances. We'll create chances. So when we go 1-0 up, we won't concede a goal like that with Harry Kane. And we won't go in 2 or 3-1 down, because we haven't got a Kieran Clark that's going to make mad runs all over the place and leave his defence out to dry. And there you go. We go in 1-1, and it's a completely different game.
Yeah,
it's a game that we can still win, and our mindset into that game is very, very different. But we need to play those moments better. But we need to be coached to play those situations better, and that's what we need more than anything.
Rafa used to always go on about game management, didn't he? It's game management. That's what it is. They need to be weighing up what's going on the pitch. And okay, you drilled, you're ready. Well, you should be drilled, but you're ready for the game ahead. But if things change in the game, you've got to react to them. And if there's a problem, you've got to spot it and you've got to do something about it. And I think Martin mentioned it yesterday, didn't he? On Loads of Mag, saying there's no leader there. You should have a leader on the touchline and you should have a leader on the pitch. And unfortunately, we've got neither. And that is the problem that we're coming up against at the minute.
And even Matt Ritchie is considered a leader because he talks and he's vocal. Matt Ritchie at the moment isn't the leader that we think that he is. And the reason being is because he is trying to focus so much on his own game, because his own game is failing at the moment, that he is not being able to lead the rest of the team because he's so focused and drilled on trying to get himself playing well. And that's a big problem when you've got a player that is a natural leader because he likes to talk and encourage other players, but isn't doing it in that way because he's so focused on trying to play his own game. And you can see it. He's so drilled and focused in his own game that he's not as vocal as what you would want him to be. He doesn't talk. He doesn't command in the same way because he's so drilled and focused on his own game because he knows he's not playing well. And that's a big problem. Lascelles is the same. Lascelles is so focused on trying to play well himself that he's not leading his line.
He needs someone next to him, Pete. That's what he needs. He needs someone next to him.
Yeah, I mean, long term, he needs to leave the club. It's as simple as that.
Of course he does.
But in the short term, yeah, he does. And that's why I say we need to go out there and get a leader. If we have to pay 40, 50 million to buy a player, to bring him in, to bring in some form of leadership, then so be it. I think Tarkowski needs to come in because he is more of a leader. He's a solid defender, but also, and if you watch him, I know Burnley haven't played well this season, but if you watch him play, he organises that back line all the time. But we need a couple of centre-backs in, a couple of strong centre-backs that are going to push the likes of Lascelles and the others out of the team and say, right, if you want to come and play in this team, you're going to have to play at your very best and you're going to have to lead by example. They've lacked organisation, they've lacked leadership, and they've lacked quality. And that's exactly what we need to stay in this league.
Well, that's it, Pete. And you know what? You've just touched on Burnley. And the reason Burnley are still where they are is because they're well drilled. they've got leaders. You can see that all over the pitch. Chris Wood, Ashley Barnes. You've got Ben Mee, who's the captain. Ben Mee and Tarkowski at the back. You know, they die for each other, don't they? You know, the shouting instructions constantly. They all know the jobs. And I tell you what, if we were to get Tarkowski, that could be interesting for Burnley, couldn't it? Because they're going to need a really good replacement.
If we took those two different centre backs, Ben Mee and Tarkowski, and put them into our team, right? We wouldn't
with
be
Dubravka in goal.
With Dubravka in goal, we wouldn't be in the position we are right now. They'd be able to organise us through games, right? And they'd be able to get Matt Ritchie through a game. For me, Manquillo has been one of our best players. I think he's been fantastic. He's been very, very good. I'm so glad he's come back into the team. And again, I thought he had a really good game yesterday as well. He's got his assist as well on top of that. I think a centre-back pairing that know how to play the game gets us safe in this league. It's that simple.
1,000,000%. And that it goes back down to what we were saying before about Premier League experience. Not only do I think we need Premier League experience on the pitch, I think we need it in the manager as well. And I think that's my only concern if we bring in a foreign manager who is new to the league, needs to adapt, needs to get these players playing. I think that could be where we come unstuck if we don't bring in that manager who's, you know, used to the league and knows the players.
Great point.
Right, Pete, I'm going to move on to the sponsors. Okay, so first of all, Spider VPN, big massive thanks to Spider VPN for their support. For all your internet needs, visit the lads and I'm sure they'll be able to help you out. Make sure they protect your internet and protect all your settings and stuff like that. We also have skipsandbins.com. They've been a long-term sponsor of the show. You can contact Skips and Bins on telephone number 0800 25 45 25 free. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website address www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract-free, pay-as-you-go waste collection. And we've also got the Saudi Sir Bobby there. We've also got L&G Family Funeral Directors. They can be contacted on 0191 389 7245. One of our personal favourites, we've got qtechshop.co.uk. We've got John Justice Allen in the chat there. Big shout out to him. That's for all your pool and snooker tables. So make sure you go on the website, have a look at what they've got. They also do some fantastic t-shirts as well, which I'm sure you've all seen. So get yourself on the website, have a look at those. We've also got Jab Signature, who do all the posters and flyers for the show. Big shout out to them. They've also recently launched a new website, which is www.jabsignature.co.uk. I saw Steve at the weekend and he had a very fetching tracksuit on. So they've got some fantastic stuff on the website. Get yourself on there, have a look and see if there's anything that takes your fancy. If you're enjoying watching the program with myself and Pete and all the other 6 days a week where where we have a show on, visit Newcastle Legends, like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe. If you're catching up on the show, get yourself onto iTunes or Spotify if you're going out for a walk or you're on your lunch break or something like that. Don't forget you can get this show on iTunes and Spotify. Also want to mention the NUFC Matters Christmas night. Hopefully there'll be a good few of us there. That's going to be in the Tyneside Irish Centre on November the 19th at 7 p.m. Make sure you get yourself on the NUFC Matters website. There's still tickets available. And finally, Loaded HQ or Loaded Mag. So if you're enjoying watching myself and Pete and you'd like to watch a little bit more, help us reach 2,000 subs. How? It's easy. Go to youtube.com/c/loadedhq and subscribe, and it's free. Join myself, Daz, Martin, Richie, and of course, Pete. And that's that. Pete, any more comments before we bring on our last guest of the night?
Yeah, you know what? There is. Life Goals has put some great comments on here tonight. He's put this one. He's put Pete. Ryan Fraser has a heart of a sparrow. He hasn't done anything at the club, at club level since 2019. And you know what? You know it's a fair point in terms of looking at the way in which he left Bournemouth, and he did leave under a black cloud. However, he hasn't been given an opportunity at Newcastle. He hasn't been given a run of maybe three games or more. So we haven't been able to see the best of Ryan Fraser because there's clearly an issue between him and Bruce. Bruce hasn't trusted him. He didn't help himself with the sending off at Sheffield United, but to be honest, he should have played more minutes even before then. And I think that's been the biggest frustration for him. He played the whole of pre-season and actually played well, and then found himself on the bench at the beginning of the season. I don't think that was right. And I can't help but stress when you've got a team that struggle to create chances and you've got Ryan Fraser on the bench that doesn't even come on in matches, that therein lies the problem. He needs time, he needs games to build up his fitness, to build up his communication and his connection with players on the pitch in order to play his best football. So for me, as I said to Mike when he came on, if you've got a new manager coming in, the first thing I'd be looking at is him and saying, right, I want you to play. I want you to be my man. Create the chances and the ammunition for the likes of our Wilson and St. Maximin and maybe Almiron to get on the end of and get your assist levels up. That's what I'd be saying to him. The heart business, is more Bournemouth. I don't believe that's necessarily the case at Newcastle because there's no evidence to suggest that that is the case. At all. He's also made a point, if Tarkowski, Koulibaly and Dunk were available for a combined 40 million, would you ditch every first team centre-back currently at the club to sign them? Now, first and foremost, Koulibaly would cost more than 40 million on his own.
His left leg could cost 40 million.
Yeah. And Dunk with his English tax would be not far off that price either. However, those three centre-backs keepers in the Premier League. It's as simple as that. Those three centre-backs keepers in the Premier League. You would struggle to get past that defence. If we had Koulibaly or either Dunk or Tarkowski as our defensive two yesterday, we don't concede 3 goals. That's just a reality because they are significantly better than what we have in our team at the moment. And I would 100% ditch every centre back in our team currently to get those guys in. That's how low we are in terms of defensive quality. But again, it's a great point.
The only 2 centre backs I think, Pete, I'd want to keep going forward would probably be Federico Fernandez. I think he's probably got 1 or 2 seasons left in him. And maybe Shah, if you can get a tune out of him. But in terms of the other centre backs at the club, I wouldn't keep any of the others. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to find a case for any of them, if I'm honest, and I'm struggling because they are not great at all. An interesting one that nobody that I know of has thought about this one yet, but Life Goals and one other had mentioned this. How about Nathan Ake? I would take him 100%. He's not playing at Man City. He's playing bit part. He could potentially win another medal.
He's got a mistake in him, hasn't he?
He has got a mistake in him, but actually, for long parts, he is a good defender, and he's significantly better than what we've got. And he's also left-footed. So,
yeah, he is.
So he ticks a lot of boxes for us. So again, it's not a bad shout. So Life Goals and one other. I can't remember. I can't see who else put that in the chat. But Nathan Ake is definitely an option. The other one here, Kenny Ranson, Czech Tiote's son was also at the game. Just before I came online, I saw the picture. It was on a Facebook actually. I didn't see it on Twitter. Of his son at the game, and it's got Tiote Jr. on the back of his shirt, and he's pictured sitting in a chair, obviously in the stadium, but also there's another picture where he's pointing to his dad, who's labelled on a list of different players. It's on some sort of plaque somewhere. He's obviously pointing to Czech Tiote. I thought that was a really, really nice touch. I hope they've been invited to that game yesterday. Sorry, I hope they've been invited to the game. But it was really nice to see that, and to see obviously that that they still, as a family, keep Newcastle sort of in their hearts, really, because he was a big player for us, and he's obviously still missed even today. So I think there's one more.
I was going to say, Pete, there was a question there. I think it was from, where is it, asking about the manager. And it's funny because when I read it, I was thinking, oh, God. It was from Scott Crom. Let me just find it from Scott. Here we go. What do you reckon on that, Pete?
Can we have an honest one-name answer from Pete and Chris about who they would appoint as manager?
It's all this discussion, isn't it? All this discussion. It's got us all. It's certainly got me thinking. It's got me questioning. Whether we have a stopgap manager or whether we go for the best manager we can possibly get, but maybe they're not suited to what we need right now. I mean, like I say, imagine we brought Zidane in. We'd all be going, yes, Zidane. Zidane's not going to manage in the Championship. Zidane isn't going to know the Premier League like some other managers. Zidane is going to have to deal with these players right now, and then in January, he's going to have to bring in like 4, 5, 6, 7 players because he's going to think, he's not good enough. He's not good enough. Is that the way forward? Or is it just a case of bringing someone in till the end of the season? What are you saying, Pete?
My question on Zidane is he has managed Real Madrid twice, who have big characters. So he's come in not to coach them or to tactically put them in place. He's there to manage egos. That's what Zidane was brought in for. It was to manage egos, manage the likes of Ronaldo, Gareth Bale, Benzema, Sergio Ramos, Varane, Tony Kroos, Modric, all the rest of them. He was there to manage the egos in the room. And that was the most difficult thing. He managed to do that and he managed to get them playing. And that's why they were so successful. I don't believe as a coach that he would be able to get the same reaction from some of these players. I don't believe he'll even know who some of these players are. And that for me lies a big problem. So I don't see that Zidane is an answer for that reason. It's a tough one because if you're asking any manager, then of course I would want Antonio Conte to come in because I think he's a terrific manager, and he's a manager that breeds and demands respect and he demands quality right from the beginning. He's not a manager that lasts long, but he's a manager that during his time in the club he will get the absolute maximum out of you. However, I do think that we need a manager that's going to keep us potentially in the league. So for me, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because I'm thinking who's going to keep us in the league? Someone that's maybe English, someone that knows the league quite well. I would. Look, I've always stuck with Eddie Howe all the way through. And I thought him coming in with his knowledge of Fraser, Ritchie, and Wilson could get those players playing. And if he gets those players playing, he can organise the rest because he's a tactical manager. I still believe if he came in right now, he would get us playing. And he would get us organised and set up in a way in which we would win matches. That's just my opinion. There's Chris Wilder out there that I think would get the same reaction out of these players, and that's what we need. We need a reaction and a way of playing, and I think those two managers would do that. So as a stopgap till the end of the season, I think those two would be a good choice. What about you, Chris?
Do you know what, mate? I'll keep it short and sweet, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but based on the conversations that we've had tonight, and people saying about Conte and people like that, Conte's been my ultimate number one. And if somebody said to me, you can bring someone in and Conte will take it next season, then I would do that. I wouldn't necessarily bring someone in who we're going to have for 2 or 3 seasons who maybe isn't as good as Conte. So I think, do you know what, mate? I think Eddie Howe shout's good. I haven't been all for Eddie Howe, but right now for what we need, now there'll be some people out there who go, oh, he relegated Bournemouth and stuff like that, and fully aware of that, but we need someone in who understands the league and most importantly, gets the players and knows how to get the best out of these players. Now, it just so happens we've got, 4 players at the moment who've played under Eddie Howe at Bournemouth, or, they've been at Bournemouth and Eddie Howe's been there. Don't forget, we've got Graham Jones as well. So I don't think Eddie Howe is such a bad shout. He's out of a job at the moment. Would he take it till next season? If we go down, fingers crossed, obviously we don't. We'd then say to him, listen, we'll keep you on, get us back out the Championship. However, if he doesn't, he'll have a nice, big fat payoff, a big thank you, and then we bring in the big guy next season. That I don't think that would be such a bad thing.
I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with it. You need players. You need a manager that's familiar with the players that can put a team together that makes it difficult to beat. I don't see anything beyond that. And as well as that, and we've not, we didn't mention it just then, but we need someone that can come in instantly, and he's not attached to a club right now. You don't have to pay him out of a managerial job at the moment. So
Yeah.
that situation can move quite quickly. He'll have his backroom staff that he knows and trusts that he can try and get together. He's got someone in Graham Jones that he maybe didn't work with at Bournemouth, but knows Bournemouth and knows the style of play that they played. So therefore, he would be someone that could come and work in and around Eddie Howe.
That's it.
And get them playing. And we need that instantly. We need that right now. So we haven't got any time to waste. But yeah, I think I think that for me is a good shout. Other than that, you're then looking at managers that are attached to clubs. Graham Potter would be a good one for a short period, but are you going to pull him away from Brighton the season they're having? No.
And is he gonna pull away as well, Pete, for the end of the season? Probably not. Why would he?
It's exactly that. Steven Gerrard's looking for his back-to-back championship title in Scotland. Are you going to put him away from that? Potentially win another trophy? I don't know. Lampard, will he? I'm not convinced on Lampard. I'm sorry. He's a big name in terms of a player, but I'm not convinced in his managerial ability. He didn't. It's not like he won the championship with Derby, and with Chelsea, he had an array of talent there and brought an unbelievable amount of players in the season before he got sacked, and still couldn't get a tune out of some of those players, the likes of Havertz and Werner and one or two others. That he brought in. The players that he wanted, I'm not convinced on him. I'm just not, and I wouldn't be convinced on if he was to come in now that he would get, he would make a massive difference because he's still very, very new to the managerial game. He'd not been managing very long, so I'm just not sure about that. Max Aarons, by the way, he should be one of the priorities. Like for one. We should be taken away from our rivals and getting their better players and making them weaker. And unfortunately, Norwich is a rival, but he's a player for the future. Max Aarons is a fantastic player.
On that note, I'm going to bring in our next guest. We do have one final one after this, but I'm going to bring in our next guest, Rowan. Thank you very much for waiting, my mate. Great to see you again. How the hell are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. I went to the game yesterday, so I've lost my voice a bit. So.
Good lad.
I was sat next to the away fans giving it large all game and got absolutely clowned.
Mate. It was bad, wasn't it? Because we had that pure elation, and then it just gradually just sank, and then I think we all came down to earth with a bump, didn't we? Because we looked at the technical area, we saw Steve Bruce, we're looking on the pitch, we're seeing the same mistakes, the same things happening, the lack of organisation, and it was just all there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the best 3 minutes of my life.
Mate, it was amazing, wasn't
it? But the 10 minutes, I think what I enjoyed most was the reason why I went to the game. I didn't care because I knew the football would have been rubbish because it always has been under Bruce. So I thought, well, it's the first game under ownership. I want to experience that welcome, that atmosphere. And that, I came on here last week and I said it probably won't sink until they announce the owners or it shows them on the screen. And to be honest, I did get emotional when they announced it. And when everyone in the crowd started cheering, and that was one of the best feelings I've had ever. So I went more for the occasion than I did for the actual game. And I just enjoyed the occasion. Yeah. Football was rubbish as always, but you'll never beat them first 3 minutes when we actually thought we were going to hammer them. But, it is what it is. I think Bruce's time is done now. I think we all kind of knew it. I think the owners now know it as well.
Who are you bringing in, Rowan? Who would your pick be, mate? Who would you be looking to bring in?
Obviously, we're not going to get top manager. Otherwise, my first would be Conte, but obviously that's unrealistic. But I think Gerrard, for me, would be one, because I think he's got the big name. He can get the respect off the players. He can attract players as well. But I couldn't understand people saying Howe or Wilder, because let's say that we get a new manager in, there's no certainty that we'll even stay in the league. So under them, we'll probably be better placed to get promoted. Because look, we're 8 games in without a win, can't improve our team for the next 12 games. I don't know how many it is until January. So we might be cut adrift by then. So I think we've got to get a good manager to get improved results, but we need a manager that, like, if the worst comes to worst and we're in the Championship, that they can build a team to get us back up.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, mate. In terms of signings, obviously, Rowan, as well, we briefly touched on signings as well. Obviously, we saw the Jesse Lingard post. Apparently, one of his advisors was at the match. So we were getting a bit excited about that. Obviously, we were talking about getting new centre backs in. Tarkowski's been linked. Koulibaly's been linked. And there's going to be a lot of links, isn't there, between now and January? But is there any particular player or a couple of players who you would like to see us go for, Owen, or positions where you think, do you know what, these are the one or two positions that we really need to sort out? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it depends what manager we get. We're heavily linked with that Fonseca guy at the moment, and obviously he plays attacking, so maybe he would want to play with how Shah's not fancied at the moment, but he's a possession player. Maybe he wants to play with Shah, but we need two new centre backs. We probably need two new centre midfielders, a strong defensive midfielder, and we need a new striker because Wilson, look, he's got 3 goals in 4 games, which is like better than Ronaldo, better than Kane, better than all these top players that play for the big clubs, but he just can't stay fit. And we need new fullbacks, but I think creating the best spine for the team is what is important. So looking at Tarkowski, Lingard would be good. I think got to get a strong defensive midfielder in, like Kamara from Marseille, maybe a Renato Sanchez, but maybe that be too high. But you never know if you don't ask the question. And a striker, Luka Jovic, would be like the biggest pull we could get, I think, from Real Madrid.
You mentioned him, didn't you, Pete? Luka Jovic. I think he's the kind of player we should be looking at. Someone who's got a point to prove, someone who's not been given a fair crack of the whip. Clearly a very talented player, still the right side of 25. I think he's what, 23, 24, something like that. Yeah. And he's got a lot of potential. And sometimes they get these big moves, don't they? And it doesn't quite work out. But I mean, look what he did before he went to Real. If we'd have got him, was he at Frankfurt? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, and Fuad, who I was on the loaded preview with the away days on Thursday, he was under the impression he was back at Frankfurt on loan this season, but actually, in fact, he's not. So he's just sitting on the bench at Real Madrid, or not even getting in the squad. The guy's a goal scorer. He's a top goal scorer, and he's a bully. He's big. He's good in the air. He is exactly what we need as a second in command, working alongside the likes of Callum Wilson. We just need the guys to be able to create the ammo for him, and we probably need to change the formation slightly to accommodate both of them. But we should get him in. He's a guy that could get us goals.
Wouldn't be mega money either, would it, Pete? Wouldn't be mega money.
No, but you could even get him on a European loan. You could get him on a European loan to the end of the season and say, look, here you are. Go and get us the goals that are going to keep us in the league. Then in the summer, if we stay in the league, which I believe we will, here you go, 35 million up front, 40 million if you want it. There's your striker. 24 years old, you got it for the next 8 years at least, to get you the goals. It's an absolute no-brainer, 100%.
I'll tell you what, Marv's got me worries here, boys. Wayne Rooney's been named on the shortlist to become.
Delete club, honestly.
Yeah. To be fair, it was Sports Bible that put the story out. I don't take that with any sort of truth, if I'm honest.
If that was true, bring Mike Ashley back. Come on.
Yeah.
Mate.
I wouldn't believe it.
I don't. That's just funny reading that.
But Rowan, anyway, mate, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much again for coming on, mate. And I'm going to give you one of these. Thank you very much, mate. Hopefully you come back next week.
Yeah, hopefully I sound better next week.
You'll have a bit more of your voice, mate. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
You
See you
take
later,
care,
lads.
mate. Thanks, Rowan. All the best, fella.
Quality.
Here's our next guest. I've been dying to bring him on, so we've got Steve Bruce. Steve, you're on mute, mate. Oh, look, no show. I'll keep him on. I'll keep him on in the background. Hopefully, Steve will come back. Nah, he's on mute. Do you know what? We'll leave him. People will just crack on. Hopefully, Steve will make an appearance.
No
Do you know what? Normally, we don't have people on who've got no face. But here I thought I've got to bring him on. It's Steve Bruce. Oh, Steve.
Yeah.
You there?
Yeah.
So you're right.
You're right.
How are you, Steve?
Not too bad.
Steve, what have you got to say, mate?
I honestly think Steve Bruce is the right man for the job.
You would say that, wouldn't you?
Steve, you're going to say that about yourself, aren't you, mate? Oh, Steve. He's not been prepped for that, has he? Do you know what? He's
He
been in the
wasn't.
background for like
Yeah.
half an hour. You think he'd have a little script or something to say. Oh, Steve. I've just seen his face and I thought, I've got to bring him on.
There's a guy in the background clearly telling you what to say.
Yeah, and he was like, say
Yeah.
that, say that.
Yeah.
I think I'm the right man for the job. Oh, that's great.
He would say that, wouldn't he?
He
was
was.
saying that yesterday, but hopefully he's not the right man for the job any longer.
I know.
He's cut adrift.
I know. We just need Antonio Conte in the comments now. I'd love it if he come on. Yeah.
Oh,
Not that I'm encouraging anyone, but listen, if Antonio Conte was in the comments or Brendan Rodgers, I'd be getting you on as well.
Definitely. But
Pete, any more comments we want to talk about before we wrap up? We got one here. Got one here.
Shelvey, I wouldn't have him in the team. He needs to be made an example of, just in the same way that we said that Ryan Fraser needed to be made an example of when he got sent off needlessly against Sheffield United. It was unnecessary. I think Mike touched on it. Unnecessary, and it hampered the team. By putting us down, we're already losing the game, and then you would go down to 10 men. He'd barely been on the pitch very long. Doesn't show you the type of experience and the leadership that he's supposed to have. Therefore, he needs to have an extended period out of the team for me. And I know he's only just come back from injury, but I'd rather play someone else that's going to give 100%. And for me, if we had an opportunity to move him on in January, I would. He's on 80 grand a week. There's always question marks about him, and if we could put that 80 grand a week into somebody else that could come into the club and give us more, I would do that now. We need to start transitioning some of these players out of the team. Like I said, Kieran Clark, Dwight Gale. We needed a striker on the pitch, and Dwight Gale doesn't even get brought on. We bring on Jacob Murphy and I can't remember who the other guy was, but it might have even been John Joe Shelvey. But we brought two other players on the pitch, and the striker that we needed to be on the pitch doesn't even come on. Dwight Gale needs to leave. He's just a waste of money at the moment, and he's a waste of a player in the squad, in our 25-man squad. So him, Kieran Clark, John Joe Shelvey. You've got Kraft, you've got Hendrick, all need to be moved on. So you move those players on, whether it's a loan or whether it's a permanent, get them out of the club, get players into the club that are actually going to impact the first team and actually command a place in the first team and give us something different, and you'll have a better outlook on our performances on the pitch. It's that simple, with a manager that knows what he's doing.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I mean, he for me, Shelvey and Lascelles are the first two that I'd chip out personally, because I think they've done a job in the past, and I think they've long outstayed their welcome. I think it's time to move on. We need fresh new bloods, fresh ideas, fresh voices, and it's time to just bring in new players and start something new. And you could even add Matt Ritchie to that. Matt Ritchie's been a fantastic servant to the club, and he's never let us down in terms of effort and endeavour. But I do think it is time to move on now.
Yeah, you're right. I think what we're seeing now is a squad that's become so stale due to neglect from the owner, the previous owner. You've got a neglected squad there that have just that are so outdated in terms of their time at the club, and it is of the case where, at least 10, 12, 15 of those players need to have moved on or should have moved on in this 5 or 6 transition period of years, and it's not happened. So we're just a stale squad now that needs to be breathed a little bit of new life, and we need that instantly in January. But we've got a huge amount of games between now and January that we need to win. So what do we need? We need a manager that's going to get the most out of these players up until that point. There's an interesting one here. Just
Oh yeah, go on, mate. Go on.
Can we get Money Mike Ashley on?
Oh, mate, it'd be great getting him on, wouldn't it?
It would be. It would be interesting to see who it actually is and their opinions on that. So if he's watching, give us a shout and we'll get you on next week. So Jeff said, so that's decided. Eddie Howe and Stones. Who's going to tell Mandy? Well, we shouldn't need to tell her or the consortium. I've already said John Stones will be a perfect signing for us in January to really make a statement. But at the same time, we need to be in a position where we're not cut adrift. Otherwise, those type of players aren't going to come to us knowing that they're going to potentially get relegated. So we need to step up some big performances now and get points on the board where we're either out of the bottom three or we're well in with a fighting chance going into the back end of the season. So these players coming in January can actually affect the team. I don't know what you think about that, Chris.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, I've heard Pete that Mandy and Mairdad watch the shows, so hopefully they're watching. Mandy, Mairdad, that's who we're looking at. John Stones, Tarkowski. I mean, like you say though, this is nothing new. This is us as fans. This is what we live, sleep, breathe the club, everything. But now that they've come in as owners, you can see that passion. You can see the interest. They want to kick on just as much as we do. And I fully believe, that they've already been lining up transfers. I think they're currently lining up a manager, and better times are around the corner. I think we've all just got to sit tight and just wait for those changes to happen, which I think will come in the near future.
Definitely. One from Yano here. Matthias Pereira. He went to a side in Saudi. He did.
He did.
He's a talented lad. If we could get him in, that would 100% be a good buy for us. He's a creative player that we'd need, and it was a surprise that he went to Saudi and not another team. To be honest, not a team in this country.
He's only a young lad as well, isn't he? He's not even gone there for like the end of his career. I'm sure he's mid-20s, something like that.
It's about 26, 27.
Yeah.
It's at a good age. One here from Scott Crom. Stevie G for me. He'll make all these lazy bastards honest because he won't take half measures. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, Carl T says the same. You met Carl T?
I did. Yeah, I met Carl, his auntie, his uncle. It was great, really, to see them. It's funny. I was just coming out the toilet, and he said to me, he was like, "Chris," and I was like, I recognise his face. And I was like, Carl. And yeah, obviously Carl's been on Live Line with us, hasn't he? On Loaded. Yeah. Great to see Carl. Had a couple of beers with him, so that was really nice. But yeah, it was that. Do you know what? That's the one thing which has been really nice, especially from doing these shows. I had a lot of people coming up to me at the match yesterday, saying that they watch Loaded, they watch NUFC Matters, and it's really nice. I love speaking to people when we're out and about, and to receive that kind of support and people saying that they really like what you do. It's honestly it's really nice. So thank you everyone who I saw yesterday or who I hope to see in the future.
Definitely. Yeah, it's the same when I've been pre-season.
Yeah.
When I went to Watford, there was a few guys on the train that stopped and said, "Oh, you're on NUFC Matters," and it's great to just chat with them for 5 or 10 minutes about the game, about their opinions on it. And if anything, like you've said, it's given us an opportunity to meet so many other fans and talk to them on a real good level about the club and the football and what's going on. So looking forward to going to more and meeting a lot more of you that are in the chat right now. Question from Yano is Danny Rose a Teletubby? I'll let you answer that one, Chris.
Well, I don't know, but he could be, couldn't he? Who knows? He could be. He's one player who when he made a move, so he went to Watford, didn't he? I wasn't disappointed about that whatsoever. I know when we did the away days, didn't we, with the Watford lads?
Yeah.
They were quite happy with him, and they said that he'd made quite a promising start. And there's definitely a player in there, technical wise. He has still got it. But the trouble I found was that he never really seemed to show it in black and white, did he? And I don't think Bruce helped, with his methods and stuff like that. So maybe under a more strict coach or a coach who had a better idea of what he was doing, maybe we would have seen a better Danny Rose. I don't know, but it just feels like the tail end of his career for me now.
Yeah, definitely. He did actually play well against us, to be fair. He's probably one of their better players, but that's not saying much because they are right down in and around us and will be at the back end of the season fighting for their lives in relegation because they are not a great side. And what I would like to do is actually take their best player off them in Ishmael SR, but we will see. Carl says, great to see you, mate. Obviously met you yesterday as we talked about. Graham Coleman, and I think this is a great one to finish on. One thing is for sure, at least we are united now instead of all the bickering. And I have to agree with that. You know, we can be frustrated about the performances. We can be frustrated about, you know, our fight in this sort of relegation battle at the moment. But you know what? It's nice to be talking about, you know, the future of our club in a positive light, what could be happening in potentially the next 2 or 3 years. And it's nice to not be talking about, is the takeover going to happen? Is it not? You know, talking about what manager's going to come in is a nice feeling about, rather than talking about Bruce is going nowhere and he's going to be here for the foreseeable future. And there was talk that even after this season, he's going to have another roll-on year in his contract. That's not going to happen. So it's nice to have these conversations sort of in a positive light. What about you, Chris?
Do you know what, Pete? You hit the nail on the head there. I mean, even when we were talking about the game yesterday, obviously there's disappointment there. We didn't win the match.
Yeah.
We spoke briefly, you know, about Willock, Longstaff, Hayden, Clark, but like it doesn't matter so much, does it? Because we know that this isn't long term. We're now on a different path. Things are going to get better. But you can't get a takeover one night and then wake up the next day and be like, right, everything's going to be rosy, everything's going to be fantastic. It's going to be a process. It's a long process, but we're on the right path, and things are going to improve in the near future, aren't they? So, you know, we can see the problems, and if we can see them, definitely these new owners can see them. And then when the director of football comes in, when the new manager comes in, they're going to see it as well. And these things will be rectified. I was going to say quickly rectified. They'll be rectified in due course, but make no mistake about it, things are on the up.
I was meant to be the last one, but I'm going to put this on there because this just made me laugh. Laugh goes. Danny Rose has the same title as John Bars versus Newcastle.
Yeah. He is. It was them fish and chips. I wouldn't mind. He even warned us, didn't he? When he moved back, first thing he said, "Oh yeah, fantastic fish and chips in the north."
Yeah, they said he's huge.
He stuck to it, didn't he?
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And then the last two, promise he's the last two. Jeff, arguing about what to buy for Christmas, it's great. And it is, you know, the buzz that we're going to have going into January, knowing we've got millions potentially to spend is a really nice feeling, knowing that players will come through the door and they're likely to be permanent signings too.
By the way, Pete, just to add to that, I didn't even give it any notice, I'll be honest. What did you make of the report? I don't know whether it come from Luke Edwards saying that we've got 50 million to spend in January. What did you make of that?
I nearly choked.
Yeah, that's what I did, mate, when I heard it.
Oh my god! Nobody knows. Is the answer?
Can't be 50 million, people. Can't be.
Nobody
Can't
knows.
be.
Right, I'm sorry, right?
Can't be.
But that consortium, he would be the last person they speak to. Nobody knows, and people are just clutching at straws. This 50 million rubbish, right? We may only spend 50 million, maybe, but I tell you what, he doesn't know that, and nobody else does. The only ones that know that are the consortium right now who are organising what's going to happen with our management situation and what's going to happen in January. They're the only ones that know that right now. So, take anything that Luke Edwards says with a pinch of salt, because I'm sorry, when you purposefully wind up fans to get a reaction out of them intentionally, you start to then lose all sort of credibility, really. Even when you're writing sort of things that may actually be factually true, you start losing that credibility because your fan base is your audience, and if you're intentionally winding them up, then you know, like you just lose all, like I said, you just lose all credibility in terms of your ability to convince the fans that your stories are correct. I don't trust
Daniel
anything.
makes a great point there, Pete.
So are they saying 50 million so other teams don't try and... Yeah, but it's the whole reason why 50 million won't be given as an actual figure. It's like we were told before we only had 10 million to spend in the summer. And, you know, it's one of them where it's just like, hold on a second. You know, why would we go out and say we've only got this to spend, or we've got 190 million to spend and we're going to spend it all? Why would you tell clubs that you're looking to buy players off that you've got that money available? Because they're going to take you to town on it. Stay quiet, stay silent, go and do your business in the background, talk to your agents in the club separately, then go and do your deals there. And by the end of January 31st, you will know as a fan base what we've spent as a club, and you'll have a better
Tell you
idea.
what, Pete, you know what I didn't even consider? How exciting is transfer deadline day going to be?
You know what?
For a change.
It could be
Deals
exciting.
It could get done.
It could be. But if I'm honest with you, I want deals. I want deals
Early
done
doors.
January the 1st. We've got no time to mess around here. We want players coming through the door January the 1st. So they're training with us and they're playing not just at the end of January, they're playing all of the January games. So they're getting as many games out of the club as possible this season, because we need players in fast. You know, it's all right saying, you know, yeah, transfer deadline day, and it's great. And if we can get the odd additional signing at the end of the month, then fantastic, because some players do come available late in the window. But we should be targeting. So, for example, Jesse Lingard, Tarkowski, you want those players? Get that deal done mid-January, so those players are walking through the door in January the 1st or January the 2nd, so they can be integrated into the team instantly. Yeah. That's what we need right now. We haven't got time to play games.
Do you know what I think will be interesting, Pete? You're right. I think we're going to have players lined up. I think it'll be early doors. Let's hope Lee Charnley isn't still in charge of making those deals happen, because I think he'll get his knuckles wrapped if they're not done early doors. But what'll be interesting, I wonder whether we will use the January transfer window to our advantage. So say we bring in the players we want. Let's say we're happy with the squad. And then January the 30th, January the 31st comes, you're going to have a lot of agents flapping. You're going to have a lot of clubs thinking, oh, look at the balance books. We could really do with moving him on. We really want this player. Trying to get rid of players. Now, normally, under Ashley, the door was firmly shut. We probably had people knocking on the door saying, oh, do you want him? And be like, no, don't want him. Now, that, you know, we've got that power, haven't we? Yeah. We've got that pot of money. We will be interested in players who may have been told in the first week of January, no, they're not available. You'll find the last couple of days of the window, when with clubs, you know, panicking, thinking, you know, we need new players in and stuff like that, could bring up some fantastic opportunities. Really could.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where we've got, you know, we could have one or two of those surprise signings added in at that point in the season, because we're, like you said, we've got the financial clout to go. You want the money? Bang, there it is, done. And there will be players that will want to move on last minute. Players that are fine in January the 1st, but by the 30th, they're not getting games and they want to move out. And some clubs wait until the last week of the window to move those players out. I think we need to do that. And Life Goals have made that point there about getting players from our rivals. I think we should.
Rafinha, mate. I'd be all over Rafinha.
Rafinha, I tell you what, I watched him for Brazil. He is a terrific player. I would love him. Ward-Prowse as well. We talked about him initially, but then we've gone quiet on Ward-Prowse. I would be breaking the bank to get him in. He's a set-piece specialist. He would get who's creating a hell of a lot more chances from our set pieces. Again, would make a massive difference. And Southampton haven't got a huge amount of money at the moment. I know he's just signed a new deal, but if we put enough money in front of them, I think they would release him. Tarkowski, Ismail Assar, they're players to get in now, because they're players you can build teams around. But you get them in now, you pay the money, you get them in now, massive improvements. Bamford, I'm not too sure about. I think he's very well set to the way Leeds play. I don't think you get the same performances from him at another club. And Ivan Toney the same. Ivan Toney's got himself a very good club at the moment in terms of the way in which they set up and the way they play. I don't think he would do as well at another club, in my opinion. I think he's very well set. But another one from Leeds, and I think a couple of guys have mentioned it, Calvin Phillips. I don't think we'll get him in January, but in the summer, he needs to be our number one priority midfield target and pay whatever it is that we need to pay, because he is a terrific, terrific player. He really, really is. And I think he'd be great for us. And really help to build us as a club. And if we were to get him, then other players around, particularly in the England setup, would know that we're going places.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Pete, I think that probably brings us nicely to a close.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure as always sharing the show with you, mate. Thank you to everyone at home for watching. Really enjoyed it. Pete, you want to say anything before we pop off, mate?
No, absolute pleasure. Love the Mondays. Love the fans forum, should we say? It's always a good chat. Win, lose or draw. Hopefully next week we're talking about a win. Look forward to seeing everyone else in the chat. If you follow Loaded, if you don't follow Loaded, please subscribe. We've got some fantastic shows coming up this week, starting with Keith Patterson tomorrow night. On our special live line show, and many more coming up in the weeks to come. We are comfortably now on the race to 2K subscribers. Doing fantastically well. Thank you for all your support. So if you're not subscribed already, click that button, get onto us, and lots more to come from us. But we will be back as always. Fans Forum. Sharing your views and your opinions like we have in the chat tonight. If you want to come on and say your bit for 5 minutes or so, please feel free. The link will always be up before the show. Chris always puts it up, so it's there for us all. And I look forward to chatting to you all in the week to come.
Take care, everyone. Thanks very much.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself.